Never a dull moment in Baton Rouge. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the game we love. Best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry that produces the best discussion, debate, and analysis in college football. We got Lon Philip Sullivan on the line from LSU Odyssey. So before we do anything, you get done watching this video, you head on over to LSU Odyssey to get the complete breakdown of LSU football, both on the field and off the field. Lon, how are we doing today?
Doing great, Mark. Thanks, my man. Sorry to keep you waiting. Mark is the most patient man in the business.
Am I really? Okay, I'll take it. I don't agree with it, but I will take that compliment because patience, I hear, is a virtue.
Mark, you are a virtue, my man. Thank you so much for having me on.
Of course. Well, thank you, because I know that you would love to talk about LSU winning a national championship 2 years ago and possibly making a run in the SEC again this year, and it's just sticking to football, because that's why we're doing this, because we love the game and we love everything that goes with it, the traditions and the pageantry and the play on the field and everything. But sometimes folks go awry, and Les Miles would be front and center poster child for all of that recently. So he ran a certain type program at Oklahoma State, and that's been unveiled and revealed and documented in places like Sports Illustrated, completely investigating, researching, and exposing what happened there. He comes to LSU. There are hints of some issues, but up until the last couple of weeks, we didn't know to what extent. And now Kansas, despite, from everything I've gathered, there not being anything that has been brought to the attention of anyone that has gone on there, I think it was the right move to make for Kansas to separate itself from Les Miles based on his transgressions at two other stops. And who knows what's happened there the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point you just brought up, Mark. Who knows what he may have been doing in Kansas, because as we saw on that ESPN documentary, he was just running that place with impunity like a king once again. And he was ousted, and it was, I think, a little late. I think Kansas waited a little too long to do that. And what was very interesting was, Jeff Long, their athletic director, goes up there, talks about how we can't have this guy here, all the reasons why. And then the athletic director, Jeff Long, follows him, I think, like a day later, maybe even 16 hours later. And I think we all know why that happened. He did not do his due diligence. I mean, Mark, if you were aware of that 2013 Sports Illustrated report, if I was aware of that 2013 Sports Illustrated report, but he wasn't aware, when he has all those resources, private investigators doing background checks, all that stuff, and he can't figure that out. I think that has nothing to do with him not being able to figure that out or it being hidden. I think he did not care. Jeff Long did not care about what happened in that Sports Illustrated report. He hired Les Miles anyway, and now Kansas, just like LSU, are paying the price for it. And, it's good to see. I think LSU can be agents of change this year. I think Coach O, Scott Woodward, they're the two guys to lead LSU's roster into the future. There haven't been any the current roster does not have any players who've had any violations whatsoever. This is a high-character roster, high-character team. There's been no incidents since last year's Ray Parker in August 2020. Before him, it was quite a bit as well. So I feel like LSU, they're trending upwards with the Title IX stuff. I know it's, you can only go up from how bad LSU was, but I see some positivity. I see some change. I see LSU students, the Tigers Against Sexual Assault group, I see them protesting. I see LSU's administration finally giving Samantha Brennan, a victim of Darius Geis, finally giving her an unredacted police report. Finally. It's little things, it's subtle things, but, hearing Scott Woodward say, our athletic director, say things like, hopefully our actions will speak louder than our words. It does make you feel like LSU can be an agent of positive change, especially in a nation full of sexual assault on college campuses. If LSU needs to be the microcosm of this problem in this country, okay, fine. we'll be the example of how not to do it, and then we'll also be the example of how to change the culture.
So, Lon, before we go forward with what is the current status and what's going on right now, I just want to close on a few points concerning Les Miles.
Okay.
He and Jeff Long have a history. So they were buddies back at the University of Michigan. So there was a connection there, as you know. And Jeff Long, as you mentioned, didn't do his due diligence. So there's a few things here. Now, this Sports Illustrated report, it's not like, okay, there are a zillion websites out there, and even Sports Illustrated being as big as they are, SI.com is, of course, the internet name, and then they've got a zillion subsites, so I could understand some kind of report getting lost or whatever. But number one, all you have to do is Google Les Miles investigate. You're going to find tons of stuff. Number one.
Yeah.
Number two, this was back at a time when Sports Illustrated, actually, I read this. I didn't have to dig for this, or I didn't just stumble upon it. It came in my mail. It was in the hard copy, the big Sports Illustrated national issue. It wasn't buried on some website somewhere.
I think I still have my own issue too. I saved all my issues, still do, with Sports Illustrated. Like with Rolling Stone magazine as well. I'm just kind of a weird guy with that.
I've got boxes of them, Lon.
Yeah,
I do as well.
Yeah. I probably have that issue somewhere, man. Like you're saying, it was hard to miss. LSU fans did not miss it either, but it just seemed to be dismissed as something from Les's past that came out of Oklahoma State. And you know, I'm hearing Ross Dellinger and all these other guys saying, how could we miss this? How did we not see this? I don't buy that. I think you guys didn't care. I think you guys could have dug a little deeper. I think you guys could have looked a little harder. If I were hearing the rumors clear from half the country away about Les Miles, certainly they were hearing it within Baton Rouge because I know it was making the rounds there. But, you know, the past is the past. LSU needs to make sure they do right by their past mistakes. Each and every one, go down the line, make amends, fix the past, and then we can move forward.
Okay, I'm all for protesting. I want to support the rights of people to protest, of course. I'm just curious because sometimes I don't get this question answered. What are you protesting? So what do they want to be the response to the protest?
From the players? Or
so there's the student protest, correct?
Yeah.
So what do they want the result of the protest to be?
I think they want Verge Osbury fired. I think they want Miriam Seeger fired. I think if you were to ask most students at LSU, most people probably under the age of 40, if I could give you a little demographic there, they probably all want President Tom Galligan to resign immediately for his decision on Friday. It's intense, and there's a lot of online talk of LSU shouldn't even have a football team. A lot of people who are in big higher up places in this country, whether it's in the media, in the sports industry, what have you, are saying LSU doesn't even deserve a football team at this point because of how out of control they were with a lack of institutional control, with the Title IX just cover-ups. LSU has to do right. And that protest was basically these TASA members sitting in the road just to prevent the players from driving their vehicles, which is very interesting because it was almost trying to say, hey, we're going to take away one of your privileges today, just to kind of remind them that, hey, this isn't going away. Just because all weekend it was crazy and Monday morning you thought it would just be different. No, we're here again. And I think that was really cool to see from LSU students. I'm really proud of LSU students for doing that. I think they understand why Verge Osbury was not ousted so quickly. Selective service, that's very hard to get someone ousted from that position. But I think they want to see more done. And I think LSU are taking tiny steps, but they're the right steps. I want to see more and more and more.
Yeah, when it comes to protesting, the issue that I have is sometimes the manner in which the protest is displayed. And based on what you just described, I just don't like the thought of 105 football players, and who knows how many would be involved with this kind of conduct right now. I don't think it involves any current football players, correct?
Nope, it does
So
not.
I don't want to see them being impeded to go to the practice field and practice football. Doesn't have anything to do with them.
Absolutely. That's the thing. I encourage the protest. I support the protest fully, but I also want the protest. I want to speak to the protesters right now directly to the TASA members. There is not a player on this roster who is not sickened by what they heard and what they read. There is not a single player on this roster who doesn't care about what happened. There is not a single player on this roster who doesn't want to enact change in their own lives. I've seen it. I've heard these words from these players myself. I've heard them talk to me. I've heard a player cry to me over what happened. So if you want to tell me that the players and this team don't care, well, maybe I should publicize a little more how much they care and how much they've told me they care. So, I mean, it's a delicate issue. I get it. Because the perpetrators were themselves football players. And the people who protected them were in the football community and the athletics community. I 100% understand that and understand why people who are unfamiliar with athletics or even straight up against athletics, why they can't understand why maybe these current crop of Tigers aren't rapists and wife beaters and girlfriend beaters, because they're not. And I feel like we need to understand that we can't paint all the protesters one way. We can't paint all the Tigers one way. We can't paint all the past football players one way. We can't paint everyone in the athletic department one way. We need to be very careful about what we're doing here and who we're saying did what and what they did. And you have to use the word allegedly. You have to be very careful about what you're saying here. And people need to be smart.
So there are current football players that you've heard from directly.
Yes.
Do some of these players take to social media at all? I'm not saying that they should. I'm just curious as to whether they've made any statements in social media.
I'm unaware of any like public social media statements by these players. There could be. I'm just unaware of them. I know I've seen a little subtle comments about, things got to change, stuff like that from a few guys, but nothing straight up, nothing definitive. I think they've been told to refrain from that. But I have had 4 different players talk to me, 4 current players, 2 of which are, maybe bench guys, maybe bench options. But the other 2 are 2 of the biggest stars on the team at LSU. And they were absolutely sickened. They were absolutely disgusted. They went to the Coach Orgeron. They went to the president. They demanded answers themselves. So it's not just the students who are looking for answers. It's not just the TASA members. The LSU Tigers themselves are looking for answers.
Well, that's good to hear. That is good to hear that they have a concern for what's happened in the past, even though, they could easily say, you know what, I'm not doing anything wrong. It's not going on now. Leave me alone.
Exactly.
Take care of other people. But they don't want to be associated with that, and they want that type of behavior to be dealt with, and they want that to be dealt with in a manner to prevent it from coming back into the program as well. So again, good to hear.